The Making of Stones is available right here at Malvern Books, and she's right here for you to sign it. So what we do next is I'm going to bring 3 chairs, and the poets, when I ask the 2 poets to join me, and we're going to go into a little panel discussions where I'm going to invite the audience to please join in. So please ask questions, get into a discussion. It's not about me asking questions, it's about you asking questions. So I'm going to start asking questions, but I need you guys to join in, okay? So poets, if you would like to bring a chair and join me.
You bring the nice fancy chairs.
I'm going to let you guys sit right over there, and I'm going to sit on the edge, away from the action. So, Andrea Eames and Kip Stratton, thank you so much for joining us here tonight. I really appreciate it. I had a lot of fun listening to your poetry. And it seems like you folks could sit closer to us.
No pressure.
If you'd like. No? So, tell me, you guys write really different kinds of poems, and I enjoyed both of them. Why is that? Why can we enjoy poetry that is so incredibly different?
Do we write different kinds of poetry?
I don't know. I mean, I find some similarity in the way we write. I don't find it all that different. I think we're both quite vivid in our imagery and we use all our senses.
Well, there's a lot of diesel engines in your poetry that's not in your engine.
Right.
That's true. I have not represented diesel engines very well in my poetry. That's the next collection. It's called Diesel.
Diesel.
Yeah. I think that maybe Kip writes more, if you look at it from a sort of, like, just without analysing it too deeply, Kip certainly writes about more masculine subjects, and there's more kind of heft and muscle and, like you said, the diesel engines and the kind of, the, you know, in quotation marks, masculine side of things. And I think I write more feminine poetry in quotation marks as well. I deal more with things that are more fluid and organic, but I think we approach them similarly.
It's also, you're drawing from your experiences.
Right.
And I grew up in the oil patch, and was very much blue-collar background, living in trailer houses and all of that. So that's sort of some foundational imagery that I, draw from. And,
Is that the style of poetry you've written your whole life?
Well, except for the crap I wrote in college.
The crap we all wrote in college doesn't count.
But, yeah, I mean, there's probably the poet that influenced me the most was, I never got to meet him, unfortunately, was Richard Hugo, who wrote a lot drawing from his childhood and younger days in Seattle, and then later kind of started the whole creative writing program at the University of Montana in Missoula, and so many good writers came under his tutelage from that. And, but if you read his stuff, it's so much drawn from bars he was in, houses he knew, and all of that. And so that's...
I enjoy a lot of that in your poetry. Is just like you said, the blue collarness and the roughness of it, and the bars and the desert and the diesel engines. I like that. That brings it home for me. I grew up in West Texas, and that brings it home for me. And Andrea, for yourself, a lot of, like you said, a lot of poetry that you write is confessional and very intimate. And yet, you have such a diverse background, at least for us Americans. You were born in Zimbabwe, you grew up in New Zealand, and now you live here in America. And I'm wondering why some of that doesn't make it into your poetry.
I think it makes it into my novels. So that's the space in which I have a really strong sense of place and explore it. But I suppose poetry is my outlet for the more personal stuff. So far, that might change. I'm hoping it will change. I don't want to endlessly write about myself. I'd love to write a collection of poems about Zimbabwe, and I've written a few, not enough to warrant a full collection yet. But in my books, the setting is a character. I mean, Zimbabwe is a character, and it's such a strong element of what I write. I am a little surprised as well that it hasn't bled over.
But how old were you when you left Zimbabwe?
18.
18, so you have a very good concept of Zimbabwe.
I think so, up to a point. I didn't lived there as an adult. I left when I was still a teenager, so my Zimbabwe is still, in some ways, a larger-than-life child Zimbabwe. There's a lot more magic in the way I view it than that would perhaps be if I'd stayed and got a job and lived an adult life there.
Right.
But yeah, I seem to keep, like, returning to what you said about the oyster and the pearl. I mean, Zimbabwe's the sand that's kind of constantly there worrying at me, so I'm always writing about it.
So I like that concept of the irritation that makes the poem grow, because I find that a lot of my own poetry comes from that a lot of the time, and especially when I write political poems or angry poems about the way the world is going, whether it's now or before now. And so Kip, you didn't really read us any political, well, a little bit, but is there some political stuff that comes out from you every once in a while?
It might end up that way. This is going to sound really strange. Sometimes I wonder if I'm not psychotic, but I don't really know where these things come from. It starts with a line, and then another line, and then another line, and it begins chasing metaphors, really, is what I end up doing. There are these images that pop up, and I say, okay, this is a metaphor for something, and hopefully different people can interpret it in different ways. It comes out of that. Just, it's usually a line, and I think it was, I'm not going to get this quote anywhere nearly right, but, Oden, the great early 20th century British poet, used to say, he wrote poems because he more or less liked to hang around words and overhear them talking to each other. And so that's sort of what gets going for me, is it's like, okay, well then what if and let's do a really strange verb here that no one will expect, and they just take on this life, and then I rewrite a fair amount, that's really strange too, because I don't really know what I'm rewriting. This just makes sense, in a
Well,
way.
how do you mean you don't really know what you're rewriting? What do you mean by that?
In that I don't necessarily know I'm trying to make any statement about anything or express anything. It's like, this sounds good. Let's amp it up here a little bit more.
I'm kind of
but I know where this is coming from.
Because I'm a little surprised to hear that from you, because it seems to me like your poetry definitely has a narrative slant.
It does.
Seems like you're definitely going somewhere with each poem.
Right. And a lot of it is exploring kind of some alter ego stuff, because I feel like there have been a lot of times in my life when I could have gotten into some serious trouble on different kinds of things. And what if this person had really emerged, and so this might be this little narrative about that really not so good person that came along. And though some of them are just very accurate, some of the stuff tonight was just drawn from real experience.
Right.
And shaving a level off the real experience and leaving most of it unstated below what happened.
Yeah, that's the way a lot of poems should be written in many ways, because it invites for second and third and fourth readings, I think.
Yeah.
And Andrea, so going back to the irritation, I want to kind of hear your kind of thing on it, and especially since you did read a political poem that you wrote right after the election, after you found out the results, I'm guessing.
And it was such a slant on, political is a strong word for it as well.
Yeah.
It's very sidelong glance at being political. I haven't figured out how to be a political poet yet.
What do you mean by sidelong glance?
Well, it's about watering plants on a balcony, and
Yeah, but the image can be one thing, but you definitely know what the poem's about, and so, or at least we think.
That's true. I guess I try to write poems that come at things sidelong, or don't quite land directly on the nose, and like you were saying about choosing verbs and choosing words that are unexpected or strange.
Yeah.
I like to do that.
Yeah.
If something, I like to choose the odd word, the one that kind of go, huh? Is that quite right? You know? And I like my poems to be a little off as well, or a little not quite,
What do you mean by that, a little off?
just a little disturbing, or a little something about them that's not comfortable.
Make
Even
the
if
reader
they're
twitch a
pretty,
little bit.
yeah, even if they're very pretty and lyrical, I like there to be something in there that's a little dark or a little strange,
Right.
possibly a little disturbing or even a little repugnant. About
And that's kind of cool, I like that. And does that come about in the rewriting of the poem? So Kip says that he tends to rewrite quite a bit and work his poetry. Do you do the same?
No, not really. In some ways our approach is quite similar because I think it's quite intuitive, and we come, like you were saying, about finding an image and letting the metaphor just kind of work itself out. I do that. But once I have a full poem, I tend to write it in one sitting, and if anything, I go back and just make it sparser, just make it more concentrated.
Right.
I don't tend to rewrite a great deal in poetry. Novels, I mean, I rewrite like hell. I'm on draft 12 of current book, you know. But poetry seems to come out in one mass, and I just have to.
Well, you're lucky. Sometimes I work on the same poem for like 10 years. So, yeah.
That's novels for me. I've worked
Right.
on them for years and years, but yeah, poetry's a different animal.
Hey, does anybody in the audience would like to join in the conversation or add something?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
I mean, it's not a very specific question to your poetry, I'm sorry I came late, but what do you tell people when your friend said about rhyme in poetry? Because I know that's like supposed to be sort of verboten or whatever, but yet, you know, some of the greatest poetry is rhyme, and even though it's like
Yeah.
not a trend now, I still love rhyme poetry.
Well, honestly, I unfollowed him, but
You didn't unfriend it.
no, I didn't
Just
unfriend him. I just
unfollowed
unfollowed
him.
because it irritated me. But I think that's an attitude some people take, and I do. You know, it's a little snobby, but I do feel like it's people who struggle with rhyme, or people who haven't read widely. So they tend to read one type of poetry that is very similar to their own type of poetry that they write, and they don't read outside of their preference. So if I had actually responded rather than just unfollowing, we've all been unfollowing on Facebook these days, I know, it's kind of unfollowing week. I probably would have said something along those lines, like,
That's a good name
There's
for a
a-
poem, by the way.
unfollowing me?
Yes.
Also human clickbait. So I think I would have said something about, you know, that there's a weight of history behind that statement. If you really look at the wider context of poetry, you'd find a lot of really successful, powerful rhyme that might slot in with your preferences, you know? You just need to read more, is probably what I would say.
I think that could apply to many of us. Anybody, you just need to read more.
Right, it's just a general rule for life, is everyone should just read more.
Tom,
Both poets, Kip and Andrea, what's your favorite emotional indulgence?
Favorite what?
favorite what?
Indulgence.
Emotional
Indulgence.
Emotional indulgence. Besides depression?
Anger.
Depression counts.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I probably overindulged myself in cynicism at times, and I'm not sure if that's quite exactly emotionalism. One of the reasons I'm so interested in Sam Peckinpah is that he was a sensitive kid born into a family of cowboys and really men's men. I mean, his niece told me stories about being a woman growing up in that family, and that put him in some weird places, and that happened to me. You know, I was kind of an emotional or a sensitive guy, you know, hanging out with oilfield roughnecks and rodeo cowboys and all of that, and it kind of gave me kind of some cynical outlooks on life, and I learned a long time ago I need to measure myself, to not let myself go down that road too far. But I think, if you agree, I think everybody who writes poetry, lyrical poetry of any kind, is that black dog in the night is chasing us. You know, we all probably have some
But
some serious depression things to deal
Do
with.
you think that
It seems to
depression,
be, yeah.
depression helps you write? Like, can you write when you're depressed? Or is it,
I-
do you write after you've gotten over the depression?
Yeah,
About the depression?
yeah. Well, I write while I'm depressed, and once it's over, then, I write about the depression. One of the great things that happened to me is I got hired as a newspaper reporter when I was a senior in high school. And so I had to turn out stories every day, and if not, people got really pissed off at you.
It's a really good habit to get
So
into.
I just, I write no matter what kind of mood I'm in, or whether I'm inspired or anything. You have to keep going. So now I have this, there was this pressman named David L. Clymer who, he wanted you to get your shit done so they could get the paper out, and so the David L. Clymer of my soul tells me, write today, so I do every day.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That's hard for me to do.
It's hard, but yeah, I also had the fortune to, well, mine was a terrible job, but I hated it, but working on a magazine
Yeah.
and
You
have to get it done. You can't be too precious about your work. As far as emotional indulgence
They
goes.
get really mad at you if
They
you're,
do, yeah, but you have to be that person for yourself, like you're saying, you have the editor in your head or the person telling you to finish. Emotional indulgence for me is romantic love, sex, all that stuff. I can get very caught up in that and write endless poems about it. It's, I don't know, typical
Yeah, I mean,
girl.
well, I mean, a lot of my stuff's about romantic encounters and,
Right.
and,
That's what
and
poetry is for,
relationships
right?
that largely fail.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, poetry can be for a lot of things, right?
It is for a lot of things, but I'm thinking of the scenes in Dead Poets Society, where he was saying that's what poetry is for, to woo beautiful women. So
I knew I screwed up somewhere. Anybody else? You know how you go on Facebook or one of those other social medias and you've just friended a new friend and you realize that they know 2 or 3 people that you also know, and you're like, how do they know these people? I want to know how you two know each other, Howard.
We have a lot of mutual friends.
Really?
yeah, through the theatre community.
Oh, cool. Howard and I have been in the wine business for many, many years, so we know each other through the wine. Anybody else would like to ask some questions of our 2 wonderful poets tonight? And well, then, thank you all so much, Andrea and Kip.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for coming in tonight. This is Malvern Books, Malvern Multiverse. Remember, we have Ranchero 4, Dying in Red Dirt Country by Kip Stratton, and The Making of Stones by Andrea Eames. And it's available for you to purchase right here from Malvern Books. Let's keep this bookstore open. We love it here, and we love having poets here once a month. Actually, there's readings here all week long, every week. It's a pretty amazing bookstore. Again, thank y'all for coming in. Please hang out for a second, for a few minutes. There's a little bit of refreshments left. Get to know your local poets. They're cool.